Hello! Today we're going back inside the messy garden shed, and as you can see I've been quite busy adding lots of little bits and pieces. In today's video I hope to give you some ideas and inspiration for your own garden shed, so here's what I've been up to. So all I've actually done so far is glue these wooden strips into the corner there. I've glued these sort of planks of wood against the wall as well, and I've glued this unit into place. So I just applied a little bit of glue at the bottom of each leg and then at the back of each leg and the back along the top, so that's now secure. And then I've just glued down this box and I'm going to glue that into that corner. I was going to have this open with things in it, but because it's going to be sort of mostly hidden, I'm going to have it closed, and I'm going to put some things on top of it. I don't know what yet. We'll think about that when we get there. And I want to glue that right over into that corner, like that. Press it down. And then I've got a few of the newspapers left that I made for the decorating unit over here. So I just want to glue those onto that part of the worktop in the corner there. So I'm just going to start by gluing them together, so gluing them in half, like that. And I'm not folding them neatly at all. And then this one go in half as well. And then I sort of want to glue that one on top of that one at a bit of an angle, like that. And then I'll just apply a bit more glue and attach those to the work surface, like that. And do it so that one's sort of hanging over the edge there as well. Crease that in over the edge. And I just really want those there to fill out a bit of the work surface, and I'm going to sort of pile things on top. So they're in there like that. And then in amongst my box of miniatures I found this Radiator. And it's a little bit small to go inside a 12th scale doll's house, but I thought it would look quite good in here. But I don't just want to put it in like that, I'm actually going to paint it using the cream enamel. And then I'm going to use a rust effect to make it look old and rusty and look like it's been leaking at some point. And I'm going to have that stood under the unit there. And I've also got this paraffin heater, and I'll be doing a kit review of this on my channel very shortly, but this is one I made quite a while ago and I really love it, and I'm going to have that in here and put some things on top. I think next I'll paint the radiator and get that in. So I've secured the pieces I'm going to paint to my sheet of card with some masking tape. So I'm doing the radiator, and I'm only going to do the one side, but I will be sure to sort of get into all these grooves along the front. And I'm going to do a little mug, and I've got a tin here which is a sort of aluminium cake tin. And I'm going to paint them all using Humbrol enamel number 41, which is the ivory colour. And I've got the biggest of my sort of 3 detailing brushes here. I've shaken the paint and give it a really good stir. So that's the first rather rough coat done. I shall now leave these to dry overnight, and I'll do a second coat tomorrow. So I want to do a little display on top of this stool, and I'm going to fix a piece of newspaper on there, and then I want it to look as though somebody was cleaning some candlesticks. And I've got this little tin of Parcel that I've had in my collection for ages, so I'm going to use that. And I've got these lovely candlesticks again, which I've had for a long time, and I've just cut a square from an old used duster, and this is about 27mm square, so 1 inch and 1/8. And I just want to do a line of red stitching around the outside. Now I'm not going to do the traditional blanket stitch, I am just going to do a little line of stitching just inside the edge, and I'm using this crochet cotton in a lovely bright red colour. And I only want to do it single thread, otherwise it'll be too thick for the fabric. And I'm just going to do a line of back stitch all the way around the edge. Like that, and I'm just going to trim closer to the stitches around the edges without actually cutting into the stitches. Like that. So I'm just going to begin by gluing the newspaper to the top of the stool, and I'm going to apply glue to the entire back of the newspaper so that I can sort of bend it around and curl it over the edges of the seat. Just thinly covered there. So I want this part of the stool facing the front where I've done the string repair there. So I'll sort of have it like that. Curl it round. I'll curl that round, but just pick up a corner there, make it look a bit crumpled. And then I want one of these standing up, and I hope this is going to work with the Gorilla Wood glue. I'm sticking to 1 part paper, so it should do. Up there. Yeah, that seems to have worked. It's always best to give it a try first if you're not sure. And then I wanted one sort of laying down across like that. I'll just put a little bit of glue on those edges and see if that works. Seems to be okay. And then the little label is just coming off this bottle, so I just want to glue that back on first. Pop a little bit of glue under there and roll that down. So pop a little bit of glue on the bottom there. Okay, and I'll have that sort of facing front like that. Pressing it down really firmly. Get a little cocktail stick there, get rid of the glue around the bottom. Just like that little Brasso tin. I think it's because I remember something like that being in my grandmother's house. I don't know if people have a lot of brass anymore. When I was a child we used to have, I think they're called horse brasses, and it was like a leather strap with like all these sort of brass horse hooves and things on. We used to have them hanging down either side of the fire, like a bit like a sort of pub. Okay, so this I just want to sort of drape over the edge like that. Maybe coming around that front a little bit like that. So I'll glue it together first in a sort of triangle. Glue those edges in. Yeah, that's what I want it like that, so maybe gathered around the Brasso tin there. Let me just apply glue to the back. So when you're displaying, it's just sort of a question of trying things in place and seeing what you like, and then applying the glue, and then you can manipulate them once the glue's on to do what you want. So So I want that point going under that stick there. I'm actually going to use the cocktail stick to push that through. That's better. Wrap that round and then glue it over the edge like that. So just a really simple little display there, but it tells a story, doesn't it? Somebody's been polishing the candlesticks and then just left them, and the candlesticks are all tarnished, and they were like that, I think, just where they've sort of been bumping against each other in my storage tub, and the sort of brass leaf or whatever they've used has started to peel away. But that's why I chose these two in particular, because they look quite old. I like that. So that will sit back into place in front of the badge there. Move it up a little bit. Oops. Been putting my finger in the glue all day today on my shirt sleeve. Okay, so that will sort of go there, and I wanted it so it just still tucks under a little bit, and I like it that the height at the front is going to be above the bench. It just adds a bit of depth. So that I can glue my step ladders into place along this wall, I want to fill out this little corner underneath the work surface. So I've started by making a little parcel, and to do this I used polystyrene, which came in a parcel that I received, and I've just cut a corner of it off there, and then I'm covering it with this grey sort of plastic, again, which a parcel came in. And I've just basically wrapped the plastic around the polystyrene, and then I've cut a slit in the top just to make it look as though it's been open, and then just tucked another little bit of the plastic in there just to cover the polystyrene. And then I've done some address labels again, and you've seen me do this many times before. I used cold tea to age them up, so I soaked that in cold tea just for a few seconds, let it dry off on the radiator so it's gone all nice and brown and crispy, and then I'm going to attach the address label on the front there. And as I usually do, I'm just going to sort of crumple that up a little bit, twist over a corner here and there. I want to glue that into place over that side. And I just sort of want to bring down this ripped plastic and glue that over the edge like that. Let's put a little bit more glue on there. And again, I'm finding that the Gorilla Wood glue is sticking the plastic. I want that bit to stay on top of the box, like that, and I'll just glue that flap down as well. Right, so I'm actually going to glue that into place on top of that box. Move my step ladder out of the way to get in there, and the heater. I just sort of want to glue that along a little bit like that. So that leaves me with a narrow space down here, and I thought I might make a bag of spring bulbs that's obviously never been planted out in the garden. So to make the bag, I'm using this old brown paper bag, and I've just cut a piece from it measuring 70mm square, that's 2 3/4 inches square, and I'm going to begin just by gluing it into a loop. So fold the sides in, and I've given myself an extra 10mm, so I want this to be 30mm wide, or 1 3/16 of an inch. So when you're sort of filling a gap in particular, will sort of make a note of the size that you need, and then cut your paper accordingly. Bring that down like that. And then I'm just going to fold up the bottom like that. So again, just about 5mm. I just actually want to trim that first, so I've got a nice straight edge. Oops. I didn't realise I wasn't in camera. Let me come back a little bit. Glue along there. Glue that up like that. I'm just going to put my pencil in there to sort of make a flat bottom so that it can stand up. The glue's coming through from the seams, just very gently peel it open. And sort of pinch it and manoeuvre it into shape. And then I'm going to fill this with sesame seeds, and I know they won't be seen, so it's not that they're meant to look like bulbs, but I just want to give the bag that sort of heavy, bumpy look that it would have if it had bulbs in it. So I've got a plastic funnel here. Put a few more in, I think. And just make sure you've got enough to turn over to sort of close the top down. Yeah. I can sort of press that out at the bottom. I just want to put the lid back on those sesame seeds because I've knocked them over before. That's not nice. Pop those out of the way. And I'm just going to apply a bit of glue along this top edge. Again, I'll just straighten it off. Glue that over and press it down. And whilst that's drying, I found a daffodil bulb label online, and again I aged it up. Left it in a little bit too long and it's gone a bit blurry, but I actually quite like the look of that. Just looks like it's been stood in a damp shed for a while. I'll just cut that out. I aged that in the tea again. I'm going to glue that onto the front of the sack. Not sure which is the right way up. I think it's that way. Because I can't read the writing anymore, I couldn't tell. But I remember that little blue box was in the top corner. So glue that into place. And then just sort of manipulate it to look a little bit sort of old and worn. Apply more glue if you want to sort of glue it into a particular shape. I'm just going to put a little bit more under that flap. And again, the label on here is something that will hardly be seen from the sort of front view, but if people are having a good old look around inside, tilting their head this way and that, they might just catch a glimpse of it, and it's all those little details that really add to the realism of a scene or a display. Right, so I'm just going to put a bit of glue on the bottom there. And then put that into place. That looks quite good in there. So I've got a little bit of space left on top of that package over there in the corner. So I thought I might put this little wooden box on top. I don't know what I made this for, but it was in my box of bits, so I thought I would use it. But I just want to colour it up using this shoe polish. And this is a really, really old tin. It's all dry and cracked, but it's a really nice colour. So I'm going to try and salvage a little bit of this. So I've got a piece of kitchen towel here, and I'm just going to rub it into the wood. It's actually quite a nice way of colouring wood. It brings out the grain. It smells nice too. No need to do the bottom because that's going to be stuck to the parcel. Again, I'll just apply a little bit of glue to the bottom of that. And then pop that into place in that corner, not on there like that. And I can't quite get my finger in to push that down, so I'm going to use a cocktail stick. And just press it down. Like that. And it's a little bit straight, so I'll just put it off angle a little bit. Oops, and the lid's... Oh, actually that looks quite nice. I just knocked the lid off, but that actually looks quite good. Press that down, and then I'm just going to apply a little bit of glue on the underside of that lid. I can't get in there without getting in your way. Like that. And then press that down again. Okay, so that's that little corner looking nice and full now. And I'm just going to put the step ladders in place just to see how that will look with them in place. So they'll go there like that. And then I still want that little paraffin heater to be stood over there as well. That will probably go about there. And then if I angle that round, you can see the heater is sort of covering the gap in the middle. So it looks nice and full, and that's sort of what I'm going for. I want it all to look really sort of jam-packed and full. So I was just putting away my brown paper, and I had a flick through my materials drawer and found this wonderful corrugated card, and I thought it might be a nice idea to make an old piece of corrugated iron to just put underneath the work surface there. So I've cut it just to the right size, and I'm now going to paint it and age it up to look like corrugated iron. And this is really good idea if you're making like a shed or an outdoor lavatory or a chicken coop or something like that. So I've got some paint here. I've mixed a grey with like an off black. Just sort of mix them in. I just want to make a sort of metal grey. I didn't have that colour sort of pre-mixed. I'm using this old ceramic tile to mix it on, which is so much easier than using like a pot or something, because once you're done with it you can just wipe the tile off and put it back in your drawer or cupboard. So the idea with that is try not to mix too much, because then you can't store it. It's a lovely colour. Really sort of gucky grey. Okay, it's got a nice big chunky paintbrush here as well. I've just got a piece of card here. So pop that on there. Okay, that can then be left to dry, and then we'll age it up. Okay, so the paint on my metal miniatures has been drying overnight. That's now completely dry, and I now want to add some rust to them. Now, I've actually used this process in my how to paint metal miniatures video, but I will just quickly run through it again just in case you haven't seen that video. Now, I only just remembered that I was going to do the little blue line around the top of the mug and on the handle, so I've only just done that. So I'm just going to very carefully apply some rust around the bottom of the cup. And I've got here my brown humble enamel, and I've got some white spirit, and I'm going to use the white spirit to thin down the enamel. So as I've just cleaned my brush that I've used the blue paint with, I'm going to use that to just put a little bit of white spirit into this plastic pot. That should be enough. And then I'm just actually going to use a cocktail stick to add a little bit of brown, and I've already shaken and stirred this. Take the pot a little bit closer, and I'm just going to drop of that into there as well, and I always end up doing too much, so I'll try not to this time. That in there like that. Stir those together, and that's just thinning down the brown paint. Otherwise it will just sort of apply in blotches. And then I've got a little bit of sponge here that I'm going to use to apply it, but you could also use a brush. And I've just pulled a little tiny bit of sponge off, because I don't want a lot on there at all. I'm just going to pick up a little bit of the brown, dab it off on your worksheet first. You can already see that looks quite rusty, doesn't it? And then dab it onto your piece. And this is like a little radiator. It's got like a little tap at the side. So I'm going to put a lot of rust around there, because that's where they tend to rust, where the water leaks from. Around the legs. So I think that's probably enough on the radiator there. If you know how much I like aging things, you'll know that when I say I've done enough, I always carry on. I don't know why, I just can't stop myself. I'll leave that there. And then I want to use this tin as a container for sandpapers. I'm going to age that up as well. And I've stuck the tin into the lid there. And that's that. And then I'm actually going to get my little brush to go around the base of the mug. And I still want it to have that sort of stippled look, so I'm going to take some of it off on the card. Let me just get a cocktail stick to hold the mug in place. So I'm doing it almost with a dry brush here, all around that base, a little bit around the handle. I might just use the brush to go in between those radiator slats, whatever they're called. Don't want it to look too bright in there. Always dab your brush or sponge off first, otherwise you'll just find it goes on too heavily, it just looks like a brown splodge. Okay, so once they're dry, I can then put those into position. So my corrugated iron is now dry, and it's slightly sort of curled upwards as it was drying, but that's okay, because when you glue it into place you can obviously straighten that out. And I'm going to use watercolour paints to start the aging process. And I want it to look rusty and a little bit mouldy, as if it's been stood outside for a while. So I've got some water here. I'm going to mix some colours. So I'll start off with the brown. Mix it here in the little tray. And that's actually quite a nice rusty colour. I'll just add a little bit of green to it. And there's no rules here, just mix colours, try them. I'm going to start applying that one because I quite like the colour of that already. I'm using a sponge again to apply, and take a bit of the paint and then just dab off once on your sheet, once or twice, and then you can dab it onto your piece of card. And again, you can use a brush if you prefer. Actually, I'm going to take some of that neat brown there. That does actually look like rust. And I want to actually apply that over most of it. Just heavier in some areas. And make sure you sort of work the sponge or brush in between the corrugations. I don't know, in between the grooves. I think I might have just made that word up, I don't know. Like that. I'm going to mix a bit of green. I really like that dark green. In fact, I think I'm going to use that one neat as well. I'll tear off another bit of sponge, but as I go along I'll probably just keep using the same sponge just to create some different colour effects. Let's get some of that green. It's a really nice colour. And this I'll just put in certain areas. I think what I'm going to do is get some on the brush as well, just to sort of really get into those grooves. I want to dry that brush off and then get a bit more of that brown. Dot that on as well. And then I've got another little palette of watercolours here. And I just want to get a bit of white. I'm thinking maybe it might have been stood somewhere, it got some bird droppings on it. Dot a bit of white about. And I'm going to do a little bit of yellow as well. That sort of lichen that grows on things. Do some patches of yellow. That looks nice. And then you can sort of go around again and just add some more colours. If you want the paint heavier, then get rid of the water. Use a sort of drier brush. I'm going to put a little tiny bit of black on there as well. Basically you can do what you like with it. It's just an old piece of iron. Okay, it's quite like how that's looking already. So I'm going to let that dry again and then go on to the next stage. I want to make another sort of cloth to go on top of the paraffin heater, and as I've just sort of been using some watercolour paints and I've still got the dirty water here, that's another way you can age things rather than using the cold tea method. So I'm just holding it with a pair of tweezers and just dipping it into the dirty water, making sure it's going all the way in. And then you can't really tell there, but once that starts to dry it will just look like a sort of dirty greying rag. So I'm going to pop that on the radiator to dry. So my corrugated iron is now dry, and I just want to add another little touch, a little bit of, I've got this Javis Scenics material here in this lovely green, and I've got a lighter green here as well, and I'm just going to dot a bit of glue onto the corrugated iron with this old brush. Again, I want the glue to be fairly stippled. I'm sort of dotting it onto those yellow areas which I want to look like mould. You don't need much at all. A bit down there as well. And then just like as if you were using glitter, just sprinkle a little bit over your glued areas. going to sort of tap that off straight away. And then I just want to add a little bit of that lighter colour as well. Dot a little bit more on. In some different areas as well. Not too much. Looks like an old mouldy piece of corrugated iron now. So I'm going to stick that in place now inside the shed. I'm going to apply glue to the back of the cardboard. Let's move these out of the way. I wanted it that way round. Just manoeuvre that in there and stick it like that. And in real life it probably wouldn't curl around that central post, but I wanted it to sit up on top of that sort of moulding along the back there. You can see that in there. And then I can actually glue my paving slab into place. And that I want in there, right over in that corner. And the builder's sand. Starting to fill up in there now. I'm going to use the super glue again to fix the radiator in place. I'm just going to apply a bit along the back of these rungs. Tiny bit on the feet. Very carefully just pop that into place under there. Hold it into place for the 20 to 30 seconds. So I just want to bring the paraffin heater back in, and here's my little cloth that I aged using the watercolour paint. That's a lovely sort of mucky grey colour now. So I just want to sort of drape this over the top of the paraffin heater as though it's sort of just been thrown there haphazardly. So I'm just sort of going to shape it first. Just sort of fold it and pleat it, get it into a nice shape. Something like that. And I'm actually going to glue that into place. So crease it in so you keep the shape. And then I'll start by gluing down that flap at the front. And glue that back over as well. Like that. I want the handle up, so make sure that still sits up. And sort of crease it and manipulate it into place so that it looks like it's hanging and not just sort of stuck. Like that. Just a cloth that somebody's thrown down. And then I'm not sure if my little enamel mug is completely dry, so I don't want to touch the blue, but I just want to glue that on top of the paraffin heater there, again as if somebody's just sort of put that down without thinking. And again for that I'm going to use super glue. And I just want to dot a little bit onto the bottom there. And then I want the paraffin heater will be stood like that, and I want the handle of the mug showing. So if I sort of go in that direction, like that, if I just lay it there, free my cocktail stick and then push it down. Put the lid back on the super glue. And I don't want to glue the paraffin heater into place yet because I'll be doing that kit tutorial which I haven't filmed yet, and when I do film it I want to be able to show this one as an example, so I'll just stand it in place for now. But eventually I will glue it down because, like I said, I don't want everything moving around. And actually that reminds me, I can now glue the ladder into place. Got a bit of glue left on my card. So I'm going to put a bit of glue along the back top edge that touches the wall, and I want to put a little bit on each foot. And that will go there. I think that corner's looking pretty good. So I just want to fill the little cake tin with sandpaper, and that will go in that corner. And I've got the little stool to put back in there. Again, I don't want to glue that because I want to fill behind it. I'm going to make a little wooden box that will fit just in that gap there. So I've filled the little tin with sandpaper. That's easy, just build it up from the bottom. Use as many sort of different coloured sandpapers as you've got. I've made a little sanding block there out of a piece of cork sheet, a little bit of wire wool draped over the side there as well, and I want to glue that into place right in that corner on top of those newspapers. So that's in there like that, and then I just want to put a couple of little pieces beside it to look as though they've fallen out of the box. Put a little piece of wire wool in there as well, and then I've made this bottle of Gorilla Glue, which I'm going to glue into place just at the side of the box, just to build that sort of back area out. So that goes there like that, and I'm going to leave the work surface for now and come back to that in another video. And I want to continue now with this area under here, and I had an idea about making a bag filled with gravel and having it open, and I just mentioned to my husband last night what could I use as gravel, and he reminded me that we had an unopened bag of cat litter in one of the cupboards. So I'm going to use cat litter, and for the bag I'm going to use this little, I don't know if they're called Ziploc bags, but it's that type of thing with the little seal along the top there. But I'm going to cut that part off. And then I want to somehow sort of roll the top over. I'm sort of thinking this is a bag of gravel and a job's been started somewhere and never finished, like that. And then I'm actually going to get a spoon just to spoon the first bit of cat litter in there. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to glue the top layer in place. So I'm just trying to get the bag to stand properly. Like that. And then I'm going to just pour some glue in on top of there. I'm hoping it doesn't come out in a big gloop. I know if I try to spread this around it's going to get quite messy. Let's just see if I can coat the top layer of gravel. That's working okay actually. Okay, so let's just put another little layer on top of there. So I just sort of dug the cocktail stick in there to get rid of the glue that was showing at the front. Now I know you can buy specialist glues for gluing gravel and things, like an invisible, and I think it's a spray glue. I'm pretty sure Deluxe Materials does it. So I may get some for this, but as it's a small area I might not, but if you were doing sort of a larger gravelled area, that would be something to look into. But they're sort of pretty firm in there. Okay, so I'm going to glue that into place, actually onto the floor. There's a couple of little flower pots I made, I just glued into place down there as well. And I've just been out in the garden and found a twig from our silver birch, and I'm sort of going to glue a few of them together, and I want to stand this in that area as well. So I glued 3 of the logs together and then propped 2 up against them. And then I just want to dot a little bit of the gravel around on the floor as well. So I just put a little bit of glue down on the floor, sprinkled some gravel on, and then just blew the loose bits away. So I've just about finished in that corner now. I'm just going to pop the stool back into place. That'll go there like that. And I think for today we're just about done. Still got that sort of central area beneath the work surface to finish, and in the next video I'll be coming back over here to the space above the decorating unit, and I'll do that little shelf that we spoke about. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, just really to give you some ideas and inspiration for filling your own shed. Do let me know if you've built the shed and what you're doing with yours, and if you'd prefer to make the shed from a step-by-step book tutorial, then don't forget I'll be releasing the book later this year, probably about July or August time, How to Build a Shed in 1/12 Scale. And if you enjoy making doll's house furniture and miniatures, you might like my other books. I've published 4 so far, and they're all available to purchase from Amazon. Just search for Julie Warren. And for now, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.